Some girls wake up Christmas morning to all the gifts they said they wanted. So what? 'Cause they ain't got you, baby. But every day is Christmas morning, 'cause I'm the one that you'll be calling. What's up? 'Cause yeah, I got you, baby. 'Cause to me every December it's getting harder to remember when all year I've got you. Ooh, yeah. Every day's Christmas, all of you. Winter and fall and spring come too. Got me all up to kiss you do. Every day's Christmas, all of you. Wish the whole world could feel the way you do. And every day is Christmas with you. Need a mistletoe and an excuse to kiss the one they want. So what? 'Cause see, I got you, babe. I'll buy a place to keep you warm, an excuse to cuddle in your arms when I want. 'Cause baby, I got you, baby. 'Cause to me every December it's getting harder to remember when all year I've got you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Hassani.
I'm Danielle.
And we're here for another great morning, for another great topic. Listen, guys, I don't know about you, but we've got 2 days till Christmas. It's fast approaching.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited that it's almost here. The lead up has been a long one. Maybe because we've been doing this countdown and counting down every single day, and I'm just
And every day the kids were like, how many more days? How many more days? Because they see and stuff under the tree and they see in the presents and they're just like, when do we get to bust open a present? So, you know, that's what it's about. They can't take it anymore. But luckily on Christmas Eve, we have a tradition of opening one present, so we'll do that and kind of like ease the tension, right? But I'm excited about today's topic because do you remember, all you married folks out there, do you remember the wedding vows? You know, I, Danielle, or I, Hassani, take you, Danielle, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, through richer, through poor, through sickness and health. I don't know.
You remember that pretty good.
Yeah. So, do you remember those vows? But how many of us can actually say that we have been able to run this long race? And I think that's one thing that kind of escapes us, this idea of living until we're old, until death do us part. It's sort of like an elusive concept. How many people do we know who have actually done that? So today we are going to talk about powerful marriage lessons. This is part 1. Join us now.
All right, guys, we're back. We're diving right into this topic. We do want to acknowledge some of the people who are with us this morning.
Yes, good morning, Calvin, Clarence, Stephen, Jackie, Rachel, Sonora. Good morning, everybody. Dee Dee, hey, y'all are popping in a little bit too slow. You're gonna miss my welcome, but I just want to welcome everybody. Hey, Danae, good to see you this morning. They're coming in. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody, tap a neighbor, tap a friend, right? We want to make sure that this message gets out to everyone, because if you're married or you are marriage-minded and you want to figure out what other folks who have been married a long time have implemented in their marriages to have successful, long-lasting marriages, you don't want to miss this show. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
So we're going to dive right in, guys. Listen, we're talking about marriage lessons, and a lot of us are people of faith. You may have different faith traditions. Our faith tradition is Christianity, so we live according to the word. But there are some universal principles that if you take them, you can apply them to your situation, no matter what your faith tradition may be. So we want to get you anchored in God. I remember when we first did this show a few months back, one of the topics we had was basically how to bring God back into your marriage. Oh, can you hear me now? Yeah. And so anyway, folks, we want to go back to that because many of you have been through challenges, many of you have been through hardships, and you're relying on your own intellect, you're relying on your own humanity to get you out of your situation, and you can't do that. It takes something greater than yourself. When you are anchored in God, you have His presence and His principles, and that makes all the difference in the world. So we're going to hit some of these points today and continue tomorrow as we close out this year. But number one, we have to recognize that marriage and family is about the glory of God. Now, we know in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it says, so God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female, He created them. We are creations of God. And when a man and a woman come together, they are both the feminine expression and the masculine expression of God. And so when they come together as one, they are on earth the image of God in the earth, the representation. And the enemy knows this, and he wants discord, he wants struggle, he wants all of these things to happen in your marriage to cause you all to implode, so that his kingdom can be advanced. But you need to understand the power of your unity, the power of your partnership. Your marriage has a purpose, and one of the purposes is to advance the kingdom, and you play a role in that. And so we know that it's a spiritual attack coming against us, and now we have to dig our feet in the sand and be willing to do whatever it takes to fight off the adversary so that we win.
Ooh! Doesn't that make you excited about marriage? Marriage is God's supernatural weapon here on the earth for kingdom domination, which brings us to number two. Marriage is taking place on the spiritual battlefield, not the romantic battlefield. And here's the deal, guys. We walk into these marriages with all this romance and passion and all of that. It's how we connect. It's how we find one another. But swiftly, as Hassani was saying, the enemy wants to come in and conquer. Look what he did with Adam and Eve. And I'm sure in other folks' teachings, there's other people that have examples of the enemy coming to divide and conquer.
That's right.
The very foundation of family, right? And so what we understand is that marriage is supernatural, not natural. You need the support of God to actually carry this thing through. If you think that you can do it with your wit and your smarts and your know-how and every book that you've read and no counseling,
say it again,
no spirit-led counseling, you are sorely mistaken, because this is a supernatural journey.
Number three, your spouse, and I need you to pay attention to this. I don't care how bad your situation is. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care if you're at the end of your rope. Your spouse is not your enemy. Your spouse is actually a gift. With all of their faults, their flaws, their idiosyncrasies, all of their issues, they are a gift to you, not your enemy. Even we know that the Bible says that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of darkness in high places. So once again, there's a spiritual attack that takes place. And if you are not spiritually in tune, and if you don't have discernment and perception to identify the enemy when he arises, you will look at your spouse. And this is what we do. Don't let the devil use you, right? So rather than talking to the devil, we talking to our spouse. Don't let the devil get all up in your... Listen now, I rebuke that in Jesus. You better stop. Stop, devil.
Tell the truth.
And then it's just like, oh, so I'm the devil now?
I want to see if there's some comments in here, because there's some folks in here that are guilty of sin on here, rebuking their spouses and calling their spouse a demon. But it's true, because we get so frustrated, we don't know how to resolve the issue, so we just go and blame it on Satan and call them Satan all at the same time. It's what we do, folks, but this is why we're here every day, to help kind of steer you back on course, right? So that brings us to the fourth one. The couple that prays together stays together. And Hassani and I have a ritual that we pray in the morning when we wake up. well, if he gets up before me, he knows there's a certain time now. Don't wake me up at 4 a.m. talking about let's pray right now, okay? Because Danielle's got on her third Z's, right?
That's when God's active.
But when we wake up together at a reasonable time, we get to praying together. And it was really awesome this morning, actually, that when we prayed together and I go check on my daughter, she is praying too. I think that we need to stop looking at everything so physically and naturally and understand, as the last point was, how supernatural this is, and how when we get in line with what we're supposed to do, other things begin to fall in line, right? You didn't even have to ask for that, but I remember part of our prayer this morning was even for our children. You know,
right.
With all that's going on, we're covering them, their mindsets, their heart, and asking God to keep them on a spiritual walk, and boom. So that's a big piece of it.
Absolutely. Here's another big one, guys, because what happens is when you're not in a good space and state with your relationship, we have a tendency to drift. Now, if you've been listening to us for quite some time, we talk about the slippery slope in the emotional disconnect that happens in relationships. How we go from soulmates to role mates to roommates, and then in some really bad situations, even cellmates, where we feel like we're trapped in a marital prison. That represents an emotional decline, and in that process, we are separating. But the principle here is this: isolation is a subtle killer of relationships. We were wired and made to connect, and you are in a marriage where you can connect emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually with your spouse to become one. The Bible says that we should leave and cleave. So the power of oneness is built into the DNA of marriage. But oftentimes you have so many people who, listen, I got my friends, you got yours. I got my hobbies, you got yours. We can co-parent, we can go half on everything else, but I got my life, have your life. And literally they're socially disconnected, emotionally disconnected. And isolation breeds ignorance, because what happens is if I'm in my own silo, in my own cave, and Danielle's in her own world, I start making assumptions, I start feeling some type of way, and things get worse. You know, there's a couple that we're working with currently right now. One of the individuals really just wants to be left alone. They want their own personal time, they want to do their own thing, they want to go on their own vacations, they want to have their own outlet. And I'm like, well, where's their time for you and your spouse? Well, I just need to be alone. And I'm just like, what you're doing is you're creating a scenario that's going to produce hardship for the rest of your days until you ultimately fall apart. Like, you have to be connected. There's a glue that binds you together as a couple for you to become one, and the power of connection is there. So you cannot isolate from your spouse and think is going to win.
Yeah, and if that is your situation, honestly, if you actually give in to that process of bonding and connecting with your spouse, then when you do need alone time in that space, it won't be such a crisis for the other person. But if all your attention is going towards isolation, by myself, me, myself, and I mean, where does that leave your spouse? So you can see how, take care of first things first, right? Home, your marriage, first things first, then worry about all that isolation and separation and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
Next point, it's easier for two broken people to build a marriage and family from the same set of biblical principles. Now, if you've ever built a house, or forget building a house, have you ever gone house hunting and checked out a house that it was very evident that they had multiple phases of the build out?
Oh, yeah,
right?
I've seen that.
Like, you go into the front door and everything makes sense, and then you go down the hall and it's just like, what? Like, there's a weird step that doesn't belong, and the hallway is not standard, it's narrow and skinny, and then there's some weird hallway that takes you off to like the floor that ain't right, and like the roof is lower, right? That's what it looks like when you're trying to build a spiritual house and you've got two different beliefs going on, right? You can't build the same strong foundation when you're not on the same page. You can do it. I'm not saying that I've seen people do it, but it's not as seamless. It's not consistent. You don't have all the angles coming together, pointing to the same place. You got, when you have two different belief systems, you got a steeple over here, a roof over here, an angle over here, right? So it's easier to build when you have the same biblical foundation.
That's so absolutely true. I can't tell you how important that is.
And we've talked about it so much.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. It's been our
foundation. It's really what has held. It's been the glue that has held this marriage together for almost 19 years.
There it is. Shannon has a comment. Straight up, we're married for God, but to the man/woman, he has the ultimate He has to be ultimately be the nucleus of your family. Absolutely right. God has to be the foundation of everything. I hear that all the time. Yes, talk to us. We're talking to you because this is what it's about. Like, listen, guys, I know some of you may not be religious. I know that some of you may not, as your routine, go to church or go to whatever your faith tradition may be. But we were all created in the image and likeness of God. There's a spirit within us. And when we recognize that, we really get to understand our true identity, that we are spiritual beings housed in physical bodies, and we possess a soul. So you are not your body, you are not your soul, you are a spirit having an earthly experience. And if that's the case, then what we need to do is make sure that we're fully anchored in Him, because when we are, all of a sudden things begin to change. All right, guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we will be back for some more marriage lessons. Stay with us. All right, guys. Yep, you saw that ad for the Last Chance Weekend. This is the actual new date. It's January 22nd to the 24th, 2021. Not too late. Sign up, sign up, sign up. We've had a waiting list, so there's already people in queue, but it's not too late for you. You can start your year off right by doing something that is powerful for your marriage. We had an amazing time with that small group of couples. It's been transformative for them.
Yes.
We believe it could be transformative for you. And we also told you about the pre-Christmas extension, the 60% off our digital book collection. It's not too late. Get them while they're hot. The link is in the description at the bottom. We would love for you to enjoy these books or give them to somebody who you know is in need of transformation in their marriage. And we cover all areas, all topics, communication, sexuality, so on and so forth. So get it, guys, because it's the very thing that you need. All right, we're talking about marriage lessons here. We're talking about all the things that we need to do to take our relationship to the next level. Number 7, you have to understand that it is healthy to confess your sins to your spouse. Listen, you live 3 lives: a public life, a private life, and a secret life. In this secret life, that's where our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions are. And oftentimes, it's okay to invite our spouse into a conversation to allow them to know what's going on inside of us. What are we dealing with? What are we battling with? What are our struggles? Because your partner is there to be a support system, to help you through, to help you overcome the challenges that you may be going through. So rather than trying to hide what you're struggling with from the person that God put in your life to be a support system and to help you through your struggle, reveal it. And then that's when the power of your partnership comes together and you're able to bust through those challenges like never before.
And, work towards making an environment in your marriage where you can be transparent, because for many, that's just not the case. That if they are actually transparent and say what's really on their mind, their spouse will never, ever forgive them, will hold it against them for the rest of their life. I mean, what you want is to be able to be historically transparent and honest about what you're dealing with. But you've got to make sure that your spouse feels safe.
Absolutely.
I need to feel safe to approach you, that whatever I say to you, you will hold it in the vault and that you will not use it against me to harm me later. Which takes me to the next point, and that is, it's impossible to experience marriage as God designed it without being able to forgive one another. It is a key principle. You have to forgive each other as God has forgiven you. And we all know, because we've talked about this countless times, forgiveness is really not for the other person, it's for you. It's so that you can release all the resentment and issues that you're holding against your partner, so that you come to the throne. God can now forgive you because you have forgiven those that have offended you. So it's a huge situation, I need to know that if I hurt Hassani and I offend him and I come to him with a contrite heart and with forgiveness, he can accept it. But I need to be able to do that and offer that to you.
We cannot underestimate the power of forgiveness. It's the bridge that takes you from Pain Island to Pleasure Island. Many of you want to get better in your relationships. You want a connection that you've never had, but you're not willing to do what it takes to get there. We have a history of unforgiveness. We've struggled with it for so long, and so now all of a sudden I gotta forgive you. Well, I don't even understand what that means. I don't know what it looks like. I never saw it in my home. I don't believe in it.
Right.
That's feminine. I don't do that type of stuff. I'm letting you off the hook if I do that. I'm letting you think it's okay. There's so many mental roadblocks, if you will, that get in the way, that keep us from doing the very thing that's necessary to take the relationship higher. But you got to forgive, folks. Listen, let's get this next one. You know, one of the greatest threats in a marriage is being unteachable. Whenever we work with a client, the first questions, there's 2 questions we always ask. Number 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your willingness to learn? Right? If you give us a low number, it's an indication that you're mentally stuck. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've lived life and you've accumulated beliefs and thoughts and ideas along the way, but some of those things don't serve you. And you've got to give yourself permission to divorce yourself from these type of convictions and core values that do not serve you or your marriage, because they can be working in complete opposition to what it is that you say that you want. You've got to be able to shift your mind. At the end of the day, the key to your marital success is having the right marriage mindset. Do you know how many people get married and don't have a marriage mindset? They're stuck in ways of old. They're stuck based upon things that they've seen.
They're stuck in the singleness mindset.
The singleness mindset.
That's why we talk about I need my own space and I need my own and I have my own life and my own friends. That's a single mindset. You have to merge the 2 lives together. That's been a big trick for most people that they haven't been able to overcome. So yes, you do have to have a marriage mindset. The next one is every couple needs a mentor and somebody who is a few miles ahead of them in this race we call marriage, right? Somebody to glean from. We've always tried to put ourselves in those situations where we have somebody who's actually running the race well and a few laps ahead of us so that you can actually have them reach back and show you the way. Here's the deal. There's a lot of stuff that we encounter in our marriages that nobody told us about because nobody could have told you about it, because no 2 marriages are alike. That's why our process is so custom. When people come to us, they're like, tell me exactly what's going to happen with this process. I can't tell you what's exactly going to happen with this process because I don't know your situation.
There it is.
And so everything is so unique. You need somebody who's a few miles ahead of you to say, hey, look out for this pothole, look out for that landmine, look out around this bend in this corner, this can happen, that can happen, so that you're prepared, that you can take that to the altar in prayer, right? And be ready for those things when they do come.
Absolutely. One more point and then we're going to go to some questions. Listen, this is deep. What you remember is just as important as what you forget. Ooh. Many of you are holding on to memories of old that represent pain and hurt and hardship and struggle and offense and betrayal, and you are holding on to the memory of that. You will not forget it, but you have forgotten all of the wonderful experiences, all of the great qualities. What you choose to remember is just as important as what you choose to forget. Now, we don't believe that when offense happens, you can technically forget it, because your mind, your subconscious mind, records everything. So it has to be there. It's going to be there. But you don't have to consciously keep it in your memory Rolodex, if you will. It's in the recesses of your mind. It doesn't have to be on the forefront of your mind. Because the more you hold on to those painful experiences and the more you think about it, what you're doing is you're time traveling and going right back to that moment, and you begin to re-experience the same pain in the moment that you had at the time when the offense took place. And that's how you stay stuck in this time trap or time loop of pain that you can't get out of. It's all about what you choose to remember and what you choose to forget. But here's the key. The key word in this is choice. You have the ability to decide. You have a mind that is an instrument. And when you learn to control this instrument and to not allow this instrument to control you, everything begins to change.
That is key. It's called ruminating. right? You have the ability to cut short those ruminating thoughts on all the negativity. And the truth is that in order for you to heal the future of your marriage, you must heal the past hurt. So you can't ruminate on it. You can't rehearse it over and over. You can't continue to throw it in your spouse's face. You have to go back to that, heal that, release that to God, learn how to forgive. There's a whole process to it. We have the process, okay? And then that will heal your future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a comment here I want to just, Sonora says, I try to forgive, but I'm a person who holds grudges really tight. And guess what, Sonora? You would not be alone. Because as I said, there's a forgiveness history. And so if that is your pattern, if that is your knee-jerk reaction to hold on to grudges, then you will find it very difficult to be able to release that pain and to forgive, particularly if you're in a marriage and you have a spouse to forgive or children to forgive or siblings or a parent to forgive. What we've noticed is that oftentimes if you have a major struggle forgiving your spouse, 9 times out of 10, there's a bunch of people in your life that you need to release some things for. And you may not be in good relationship with others because of grudges. And what I would say is you need to study the ins and outs of forgiveness. Like you need to become a student of it. Because once you truly understand it to its core, you'll begin to realize, wow, this is not really a mystery. Oh, it's really practical. Oh, this is what you have to do.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you begin to walk in those steps and life begins to change.
Yeah, we have a couple of other comments here. Diamond says, too many people are concerned with the wedding and not the marriage. So true. We always talk about how we barrel down the aisle, right? We race down the aisle. And then we
trip trying to get to the aisle.
And then we speed to the divorce court.
That's right? So true.
Yes. D'Angelo says, good morning. After 24 years of marriage, I've learned that if you are unwilling to be open to learn, you are open to failure.
Boom. Done deal. Said it best.
Selah. Yeah.
Anything else?
Janice says, how do you deal with you forgive them, but then they don't forgive you for when you didn't forgive them, and keeps mentioning it?
Well, your role of forgiveness is your role. And guess what? Sometimes a lot of times we find that people are stuck in different seasons. Like I see this all the time. We're in a relationship together and there's a season where Danielle is stuck. Her heart's not open. She's not willing to hear nothing. And then she comes out of that. Now I'm stuck. I'm in that season. And we kind of like a pendulum swing back and forth. And that's the hardship. Like what do you do during the in-between times, right? You just have to continue to be who you are. You have to continue to demonstrate love. You have to continue to forgive. And hopefully you're sowing seeds into the heart of your spouse that will germinate, grow, produce a harvest of change and transformation within them so that you can get on one accord and one page. But pray in the meantime because there's power in it. Guys, this was part 1. We hope that you got something out of today. We're coming back for another day of part 2. And this will be our last show while we take a break. So we're going straight into the new year, a week of vacation so that we can rebuild, so that we can rest, so that we can rejuvenate, so that we can enjoy the holidays with no distractions. And we would encourage you to do the same thing. We're excited about what's coming in 2021. But one of the questions I want you to think about as we prepare for tomorrow, what are you leaving behind in 2020? What are you leaving behind that you're not taking into 2021? What habit, what vice, what mindset, what struggle, what is it? I'm excited to tell you what mine is because now all of you are going to hold me accountable and you're going to see some change in Hassani because I'm ready to get it. I'm just saying. If I don't tell you, then it ain't going to happen. That's just the real. All right, guys, we love you so much, and we will see you in the morning. Have a tremendous day.